It's happening here and now. New urban landscapes are emerging before our eyes. But what will our cities look like in 20 or 50 years? Will they be more livable? Or is urban improvement merely a utopia? The answer lies in intelligent planning, innovative building technologies, and urban greening. Today's so-called smart cities are the proving grounds for the cities of tomorrow. Vienna is one of Europe's greenest cities. Not only does this make romantic-minded city dwellers happy, but also scientists. These civil engineers from the Vienna University of Technology are conducting research on urban greening. They have set up their test beds at an inner-city school. Teachers and students at the Kandelgasse Grammar School in the densely built-up 7th District have grown used to the researchers' presence. The scientists must pass through the physics hall to reach the school's roof, where they have set up their measuring stations right next to the test beds. The dense city area where the school is located has less than 3% green space. But there is no sign of urban gray here, as the school's lush vegetation has made it into a green oasis. The scientists have planted greenery on the roof, on facades, and in classrooms to test various greening systems. Sensors gather key data at 5-minute intervals to provide benchmarks for comparing green and non-green areas of the building. The measured data includes heat flow, temperature, humidity, noise reduction, energy-saving potential, and heat island effects, as well as the performance of different plants and substrates. Never before has such comprehensive research been conducted on the greening of buildings. Even the combination of greening and solar power is being tested.
That's enough data for this position. We should move the modules 2 centimeters towards the wall.
We'll need to find the best way to run the cables to the rear.
This sensor is really important. We need to continuously log relative humidity and temperature.
The Green School is a multi-year pioneer project. Initial measurements have been gathered for each test area, including the schoolyard.
Als es noch sehr wenig Begrünung in diesem Hof gegeben hat, haben wir
Even when there was only very little green here, we had already installed the sensors and recorded the initial readings. When we compare the current data with these reference values, you can see a noticeable difference. Greening has significantly reduced the temperature in the schoolyard.
On hot summer days, the temperature in the schoolyard is 5 degrees Celsius lower than before. The plants and substrates create an evaporative cooling effect that has changed the microclimate. The greening systems also insulate the building and help regulate interior temperatures, which saves energy for heating and cooling.
Our results show that for older buildings with no insulation on the exterior walls, the U values, or thermal losses, can be reduced by 20%. Of course, the greening systems also protect the facade against driving rain and wind, and in summer, against direct sunlight. The temperature directly on the exterior wall surface is now 20 degrees lower than without greening.
The combination of greening and solar power also works perfectly. The modules protect the plants, which in turn cool the solar cells by an annual average of 7 degrees Celsius, allowing the photovoltaic system to generate more electricity.
It's
It's the first time that this system is being tested. It used to be either only photovoltaic or only greening, as if the two were in competition. But now we have this positive combined effect the year round. In winter, the system even helps limit cooling of the wall by 5 degrees.
Today, scientists, gardeners, urban planners, and architects are working together to make our cities greener. Singapore is home to the Woha Green architecture firm, whose buildings have an unmistakable jungle look. Their skyscrapers are entwined with plants to help shade concrete and glass alike. Small gardens, or sky parks, adorn the facades. Singapore, like Vienna, has abundant green space, almost 50%. This benefits a city's image and makes it more livable. By now, however, city greening is also tied to solving major future challenges. Urban greenery cools hot cities and helps regulate building temperatures. It cleans the air and binds water after a heavy rainfall. Green spaces provide recreation areas for people and ecological niches for animals and plants. Green instead of gray is one of the new strategies in response to climate change. This means more unsealed soil and more gardens, trees, and parks. Where there is not enough space on the ground, like in Singapore, the green spaces must be moved higher.
Unser Forschungsgebiet sind sogenannte dense and green building typologies, also dichte.
Our field of research is dense and green building typologies, which means we investigate how to integrate green spaces in dense buildings.
Grün ist wichtig, eine lebenswerte Stadt zu
Greenery is vital to developing more livable cities for the 21st century, and high-density construction is an important component of sustainability. So the only strategy that's left is to build high-rise buildings and also to integrate green spaces higher up in these tall buildings.
Today's urban planning challenge is how to create more residential and natural spaces within a set area. Horizontal expansion must be avoided. So the only solution is denser construction and greener buildings, both inside and out. At Vienna's Kandelgasse Grammar School, teachers and students have joined the scientists in making the schoolhouse greener. This art class is working on a moss wall for the entry hall. The students are bonding cultivated lichens and mosses to boards.
It's important for students to investigate nature, and especially to experience it hands-on, what it feels and smells like. If you can't go to the forest, you can still bring the forest to you. So this wall is one way of bringing the forest to our school.
In addition to being decorative, the moss walls will help reduce noise. The scientists from the Vienna University of Technology have demonstrated the sound-absorbing properties of moss and other plants. They have installed vertical greening systems in classrooms. Now they are studying the effects of these living walls throughout the school. In the biology lab, for example, the reduction in noise level and echo time reaches as high as 28%. In addition, the green walls lower the concentration of carbon dioxide, increase humidity, and in general improve the air quality and working climate. The concentration of mold spores is no higher than in non-green classrooms. Researchers from the University of Life Sciences ensure that the right plants are used.
We're monitoring the plants on the walls to see which species are best suited and which ones perform especially well indoors. We started with a wide range of possibilities, but already in the course of the research project, we've seen that some plants adapt better to the conditions here than others. We'll be able to provide a list of plants that are especially well suited for this sort of task.
By now, urban greening is accepted as a simple yet effective way to alleviate the impact of climate change. Researchers are looking for multifunctional system solutions that can help generate energy, save heating and cooling power, capture dust, improve air quality, and reduce noise. With this pilot project, supported by the Austrian Ministry of Technology, the Viennese researchers are proving that green buildings can deliver all of these benefits.
Researchers around the world have focused on energy efficiency, the reduction of heat losses, denser construction, better insulation, and so forth, while the indoor climate has been relatively ignored. Especially with respect to plants, there is very little scientific data worldwide. That's why this project is so special. We're gathering and documenting quantitative data on the benefits of greening, whether it's a green wall inside the building or outside or on the roof.
In the not-so-distant future, by 2050, more than 2/3 of the global population will live in cities. This is why the architects at WOHA are focusing on how the highly dense vertical city of tomorrow might look and function. Their virtual city features power and water-efficient skyscrapers that generate more energy than they use. Between the buildings, trains and elevators circulate.
Doors are closing.
The city districts are stacked on top of each other, with lots of greenery everywhere. By no means is this vision utopian, for it could be implemented with today's technology. Plants are a design element and positively impact urban quality of life and behavior, as the researchers at the Singapore Future Cities Laboratory have found out.
In Singapore,
Singapore's planning paradigm is essentially to be a city in a garden. As it continues to grow, a key issue will be how to break down massive buildings into smaller sections and create a greater sense of community throughout the city. Things you normally find at ground level in a conventional city must be integrated into the buildings. So if you're designing a huge building with, let's say, 1,000 residential dwellings, you need to split it up into smaller sections and then make sure each one has public infrastructure and green space to make it more livable.
Singapore is not only one of the world's most powerful financial centers, but also the greenest city in Asia. The foundation for this development was laid in the 1970s, when the country's founder, Lee Kuan Yew, ordered urban greening as a means of turning back the concrete jungle. On annual Planting Day, citizens are encouraged to plant a tree. Researchers are especially interested in the upper floors of high-rise buildings. They measure the growth of plants as well as the acceptance of roof gardens by the inhabitants, who uses them, and when and how. 96% of Singapore's 5.6 million inhabitants live in high-rises. Developers must integrate sufficient green and recreational spaces in each new building, often at dizzying heights. In former days, many homes in Singapore were built on stilts. The shady, airy spaces on the ground level were favorite places to gather. Today, these so-called void decks are being integrated on the upper floors of new high-rise buildings. They are the new recreational areas, as there is not enough space for them at ground level. Some high-rise towers are even connected by green bridges, whose expensive construction costs are assumed by the government. Residents can use the bridges to take a walk, grab a breath of fresh air, or meet with neighbors. The sky parks provide residents with quick access to green spaces, since it is often a long way down to ground level. Plants undoubtedly have a positive effect on communities, but there is still very little scientific research on their precise impact. A new urban development project is underway in Vienna's Liesing district. On the former grounds of a factory, 900 apartment units will be built. However, until construction work begins, neighbors have the opportunity to use the site for a community gardening project.
A city can be a very exciting place if people have the opportunity to get involved. A city that only offers a set program of activities for inhabitants to consume doesn't generate the same degree of emotional engagement as one that lets people truly get involved.
We need places again like the village well of old, where people could meet and talk. Places like that are good for the psychological hygiene of a community and culturally important.
Under the guidance of landscape architects, an open-air supermarket was formed. It is an experiment that started in Vienna and Munich.
The open-air supermarket is actually an urban development initiative, not just a conventional urban gardening project. It's a project that the whole neighborhood can take part in.
Gardening together is a great way to meet new neighbors. It also helps brand the local district with a modern image, while children learn hands-on how produce is grown.
Many kids today don't know how vegetables are grown, but here they can sow the seeds and watch their plants come out of the ground. It's important to me that they have fun and want to be a part of it.
The vegetables are grown right around the corner, in close proximity to the consumers. For 10 years now, urban gardening has been trending in large cities, from New York to Copenhagen. Today's community gardeners are the pioneers of a new urban agriculture. In the future, commercial farms delivering fresh produce, such as this one in Los Angeles, are expected to boom all over. The vegetable plants thrive on special substrates like coconut fiber. They require up to 90% less soil and water than with conventional farming. With space in the city scarce, more such plants will soon be grown in vertically stacked layers inside greenhouses. Vertical farming was first tested in Austria in the 1960s. Today, it is especially popular in Japan. Experts predict that the use of empty city land for vegetable farming will grow in the future.
My dream would be that we could create thousands of small urban farms, maybe 1,000 to 2,000, 3,000 square feet each. I believe there's something like 500 square miles of unused buildings and parking lots in the Los Angeles basin. This could all be converted to edible gardens. It doesn't really make sense to go vertical when you have thousands of acres to grow on. But when you really look at where people are living nowadays, they're all moving towards the cities. So if you want to solve the problem of nutrition, the first thing to look is how close can we live to our food supply? And if it's right next to you in your backyard, that's as close as you need to be.
In the future, urban farmers will increasingly supply city dwellers with food. Experts estimate that roughly half the demand for fresh vegetables could be met by growing produce directly in large cities. It is now harvest time in Liesing's open-air supermarket. All visitors are welcome to pick their own ripe organic vegetables for a voluntary donation. The Integrative Urban Development Project has been a success. Some 1,100 visitors helped plant, harvest, and consume the fresh produce during the season. showing how urban greening can promote a sense of community. But this natural respite won't last. Before construction begins, the open-air supermarket must relocate.
Also ich glaube, zum einen ist es diese urbane Brache, die
A lot of people are fascinated by vacant sites within the city. Wide open urban spaces are scarce these days, so they generate a bit of excitement.
relativ selten ist.
The open-air supermarket definitely brought greening and life to the area.
Leben da wieder reingebracht haben. Und es ist ein
They're going to
bisschen
build
eine
residential
Fassade,
buildings
weil
here.
der Wohnungsbau
Perhaps
ja
it's a
entstehen
small
und
preview
wirklich
of
noch
how
einen
things will
Blick
be
nach
in the
Erde da drin.
future.
Super, also das ist ein sehr schöner Bezug.
Researchers predict that more and more people will live in verdant areas in the green cities of tomorrow. This is not surprising, given that many studies show how important natural spaces are to urbanites.